それではお待たせいたしました。
Thank you very much for waiting, ladies and gentlemen. Now we'll start panel discussion 2. The theme is Digitalization of Cross-Border Payments as an International Financial Center, Trends and Outlook. The session will be conducted in hybrid format with online participation from overseas as well as those at the venue. So we'd like to have the panelists who are here step up onto the stage, and could we have a big round of applause to welcome the panelists. Thank you for joining us. Please take your seats. We'd like to have the senior chief researchers from Nomura, Mr. Inoue, serve as moderator. So over to you, sir, Mr. Inoue.
Thank you very much. Today, we're going to talk about digitalization of cross-border payments. And we have the most befitting speakers from Japan and other countries. And ideally, it would have been better to introduce to you their CVs, but their backdrop and titles are already projected on the screen. So let me skip such introduction to save time. But at any rate, we have a heavy-weighted panel, and I personally am very excited to be part of this session. The theme has been much discussed since this morning, and you may have felt that the theme that we are dealing with in this session is slightly different from other sessions, but supply chain has appeared as key words. But as a backdrop, there has to be the finance of the supply chain, and those are two sides of the same coin, and therefore we think that payment systems are of crucial importance. If we can have my slide on the screen. At the outset, I would like to speak about what we think as issues. Now, it's not necessary to explain to the panelists, but regarding cross-border settlement, digitalization of domestic payment system is progressing at a rapid speed. But on the international front, there are still challenges in terms of cost, speed, and access. And between retail and wholesale or B2B, there are different challenges. So we are constrained in time, and there's the issue of supply chain. So we would like to focus on B2B and think about mainly the wholesale sector. And we've made that request to the panelists. Digitalization won't solve all the problems, but especially in terms of improving efficiency of payment, information handling, or improving efficiency of information processes, this is an area where digitalization can make great contributions. So if we are to strengthen the supply chain, this is the other side of the coin that's essential. So cross-border settlement is the fundamental function of an international financial center, and it is indispensable for cross-currency transaction of funds and assets. Going on to the next page, the goals of the discussion. We have overseas participants and participants from central banks that are engaged in state-of-the-art projects. So we will hear from them the meaning of digitalization and their ideas in terms of digitalization. And based upon such backdrop, we will talk about the business and policy response by diverse stakeholders, so that each and every one of you may find our conversation useful. Cross-border payment and digitalization, I will ask the panelists to deliver their interventions, but interoperability and cross-currency and digital currency programmability, which is a unique technology to digital currency. I hope that the panelists can touch upon those aspects as well. Now, I don't want to waste the time, so let's go to the first question, going on to the next page. First of all, we will ask the overseas participants on what kind of initiatives are underway in their respective countries and explain the reasons why such projects are underway to describe the backdrop and factors. I will also be speaking in English since we have non-Japanese panelists.
Moments on the first set of issues. Let me say a few words in English. The major set of issues are the motivation and approaches of overseas cases. The audiences, as well as we like to hear the views of major factors of motivation, acceleration of digitalization of cross-border payment, with some reference to the user's viewpoints as well as the policymakers' viewpoint. And the second set of points is that the overview of the ongoing prospective projects is a unilaterally multilateral. I understand that both in Asian region as well as the European region, there are some collaborative projects that have already realized some of the meaningful outcomes in this respect. So that I'd like to hear the views first from Aswan-san from Banque de France.
Thank you very much. I'm very happy for this invitation. Many thanks. Good afternoon to all. What is interesting when it comes to Europe is that it's both domestic but also cross-border within the region. So I think it might be worth tackling what is happening within European Union when it comes to payments. We have two main streams, which is very important within the European Union. What it regards wholesale payments, I think that we can say that we have a strong integration, a state-of-the-art one, thanks to mainly one thing, which is the fact that we have the euro for 21 of the countries forming the European Union, of course, but also thanks to the fact that we have financial payments infrastructures which are operated either by the euro system, so the central bank, or by private operators. So what we can say after a few years of experience is that the cross-border payments from a wholesale perspective for the business is as efficient as the European level as domestic ones. For the retail payments, and here, if I may, I touch upon a little bit on retail payments because the frontier can blur very easily between retail and wholesale payment when it comes to corporates, to business. We have had to push one on the regulatory front with several regulations establishing uniform technical standards. It is the single euro payments area, the SEPA regulation, but also a push in terms of costs in order to ensure that costs, for instance, for instant payment remain very low. It is free, for instance, for households to pay with instant payment. So the fast payment system is accessible across the board in the euro area and free for households and very low cost for business. The picture is not, completely clear and state-of-the-art because we still have some concerns within the EU in terms of cross-border payments. This concerns the countries where euro is not the currency, and we have addressed somehow the situation with the Eurosystem payments infrastructure hosting non-euro, so for instance, Swedish krona, Danish krona, into the payments infrastructure for retail and for wholesale. So the instant payment infrastructure offers devices for the Swedish krona, for instance, and for other Nordic countries. And also one of the main concerns that we have is in the retail sphere, still with the card payments solution, which remain very domestic or which are provided only by international schemes, which account, for instance, up to 60 and more percent of the payments when it comes to cards. The picture is the landscape is bleaker when we go beyond the frontier of the European Union, and when you look at what is related to cross-border payments at international level, the fees are still too high, well beyond the 1% target defined by the G20 roadmap. And it is also, and the speed remains too low as well when you have a target of having cross-border wholesale payments credited within 1 hour of payment initiation. It's only 55% of those who meet the objective, while it should be much higher, like 20 percentage point higher. So we have to work collectively on the last mile frictions. It is on the beneficiary side mainly. And we have also to be very strategic and very dedicated in order to offer the right devices from a central bank perspective in order to promote cross-border international payments. So what we are doing, for instance, it's relying on our tips, so the instant payment infrastructures that we have developed in the Eurosystem in order to interlink tips with other fast payment systems. With Nexus, for instance, and maybe Alan will develop a little bit on that one. It's a hub interlinking fast payment systems in the Southeastern Asia and India. We are also developing, it's public, tips with UPI, the Indian fast payment system, and we are doing also the same with the fast payment system in Switzerland, so within Europe. So interlinking of fast payment system is key for cross-border payments on the business side. We have also some projects with the bank, the BIS, Bank of International Settlement, the project Rialto, which addresses, tokenization, interlinking of fast payment system, plus FX, foreign exchange risk, and settlement in central bank digital currency. And maybe last point on that one, on the project that we have and we are participating in at the international level in order to enhance cross-border transactions, is the project Agora under the BIS aegis as well, where we want to take together tokenized central bank money, tokenized commercial bank money, in order to enhance the existing cross-border correspondent banking model. And it's a project which is taking place currently. What we do in addition, because I mentioned central bank digital currency, it's very important that we maintain in a tokenized world, because we consider that it will be part of the future with certainty, tokenization and DLT devices. We have to maintain central bank money in this tokenized world, and to ensure that for financial stability, but also for stability of monetary sovereignty and price stability, that we have to maintain the two-tier monetary system with the central bank layer and the commercial bank layer. And so what we are doing in the Eurosystem is that we are developing a wholesale CBDC. The project will go live at the end of this year in the fourth quarter, even in September. It is named Pontes. We will offer wholesale central bank digital currency in order to settle transactions vis-à-vis securities, but also in order to deploy CBDC in euro across cross-border, for instance, via Agora, but also via other interlinking. And the second aspect of our project would be to offer an infrastructure in order to have an integrated ecosystem on tokenization with CBDC, wholesale CBDC at the center stage of this system in order to ensure financial stability. I stop here. I was very long. Thank you.
And thank you very much for comprehensive coverage of the issues. And of course, regarding some issues you raised, such as the diversification of the prospective digital currencies, as well as the FS roles and integrating the retail and the wholesale and the cross-border and domestic, is a very important issue that we would like to discuss in the last session, or last part of the discussion. And sorry for waiting. That the Rim-san, that we would like to hear your views on the same topics or same issues.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon to everybody as well. So the way that I look at this topic, if I can maybe break it down in this way, there is, when we speak about cross-border payments, there are efforts that are looking at linkages at the QR level, which is more on the presentation layer, i.e. with QR linkages, for example, the idea is how do we enable a person that's overseas to be able to, an overseas person when they're traveling to a foreign countries, to be able to make payments using their bank applications by scanning a QR in a foreign country, and to allow the person to pay using their home currency or home payment application, right? So that's at the presentation layer. There are efforts that are underway that are also being undertaken, which is at the instant payment system or fast payment system layer, right? At the IPS level. And then there's a third leg, which is more on the wholesale and the settlement piece, which is also being discussed. Emmanuel did mention some of those as well. So if we kind of walk through those, on the QR linkage piece, there are certainly certain efforts that are underway. Just to share bilaterally, for example, for Singapore, we have QR linkages with countries such as Thailand, Malaysia, Indonesia, and also India, right? So the way it works is that as a Singapore traveler to some of these countries, I can use my home banking app. I can approach, for example, if I'm going to Malaysia, I can scan a Do It Now QR code, which is the national QR code for Malaysia, and I will be able, which my app will be able to recognize it. And because it recognizes it, I'll be able to effect payment through my banking app without actually having to be, let's say, onboarded to the local payment system directly as an individual. So what we will see is perhaps there will be more QR linkages. How do we allow, I guess, travelers to be able to pay as natively as possible? And I think it offers options over and above, let's say, other schemes that are more international, for example. How do we allow travelers to use more native opportunities? I'll speak about Nexus next, which is the interlinking approach that we mentioned. So Singapore today has bilateral linkages at the fast payment level. So, for example, between Thailand, Singapore, Thailand there's PromptPay, Singapore there's PayNow. So as a traveler or as a retail person, when I go to Thailand, I'm able to actually fund or be able to make payments using the coordination between the two payment systems on both ends, and these are done bilaterally. The participating members are actually banks on both sides, so I'm able to actually make a payment entirely through a bank-led rail. We have similar arrangements with Malaysia, similar arrangements with India as well. Now, the question is doing this bilaterally the best way to scale this? You would I think the natural conclusion is probably as we kind of grow this, it will make sense to have a multilateral approach rather than to have individual bilateral linkages. So what we have together with other central banks across the region done was to work on this initiative called Nexus. So Nexus really looks at a way to be able to facilitate this multilateral linkages of faster payment systems across different countries. It is now progressed beyond being a prototype. Now there's a separate legal entity that's been established. It's called Nexus Global Payments with its own set of governance and in time its own set of operations to be able to facilitate the interlinking of faster payment systems between the party. In essence, what this means is that if an individual faster payment system operator, for example, connect into Nexus and subscribe to the Nexus scheme, for example, they would be able to interact with other members of the Nexus scheme without having to onboard bilaterally each time they want to enter into a new country. So that is something that will be infected through the Nexus Global Payments or the Nexus scheme itself. So I mentioned QR and I mentioned faster payment system. The third leg is around the wholesale or the settlement leg of the transactions. So when we talk about payments from a consumer and user perspective, when we make an instant payment, it feels instant to us. But the actual movement of funds do not necessarily happen immediately. And this again depends on countries. Some countries work on a deferred settlement basis. Once a day, twice a day, some more frequent than that. But others work, of course, on a gross basis. This has implication on liquidity and access to funds, etc. But what we realize is that perhaps there's efficiency to be gained by reducing the pre-funding that's involved, especially when you're talking about funds that are being transferred across borders. Whether there's necessarily a need to actually pre-fund some of these correspondent banking accounts internationally. Bilaterally, for some corridors, maybe you don't feel much of a difference, but the moment that you do this at scale, I think there's potential opportunity to actually reduce the costs if we are able to improve how settlement is actually achieved by optimizing across the different parts of the international, let's say, payment network. So with that kind of a viewpoint, I think there are multiple efforts that are looking at how settlement could be achieved and optimized. There are definitely efforts domestically within respective countries. We ourselves have started our own effort quite a number of years ago through this initiative called Project Ubin. That's really looking at improving how settlement is done domestically across the different institutions and banks. We have gone forward domestically to implement a live operational environment for the issuance of wholesale central bank digital currency for the purposes of settlement. So we did a trial last year, and we are looking to enhance and extend that functionality this year. Now, on a cross-border basis, where we see opportunities, again, we speak about domestically across the different banks rather than holding, let's say, a tokenized commercial bank liability, and then the case of whether to undertake one commercial bank token or not. what we realized very quickly is that a wholesale central bank digital currency played the role of being a common settlement asset to bridge between two commercial bank tokens. Taking that further internationally, I think there are certainly a lot of efforts that are being undertaken at the wholesale level to look at whether there's scope for either a model whereby central banks have their tokenized central bank reserves or wholesale central bank digital currency on a common ledger. And we certainly see different projects that are doing that, wholesale central bank digital currencies in different currencies on the same ledger. We see variations of that as well, whereby wholesale central bank digital currencies are not on the same ledger. They are interlinked and connected. MES has done, for example, a project called Project Mariana, which with colleagues from Banque de France as well, which really looks at how we can have our own central bank digital currency, is simulated in this case, connect to, let's say, a common network. So that allows flexibility for the respective central banks to still be able to control their own wholesale CBDC, but still be able to interact with each other. We have also seen maybe a third model just to highlight, which is entirely commercial bank-led model, whereby instead of wholesale central bank digital currency as the mechanism to bridge across borders for wholesale settlement, we've seen models where actually the commercial banks are in the middle, and they are the ones that are facilitating the exchange on a cross-border basis, wholesale settlement. So, for example, we've looked at some of these models around synchronized settlement. We have an active collaboration with Bank of England and also Bank of Thailand that's looking at some of these issues around how we can effect synchronized wholesale settlement across borders. And based on that model, it's also possible to imagine a situation where you have wholesale central bank digital currency on one side, but more traditional, let's say, settlement infrastructure, whether it's a real-time cross-settlement system, RTGS system, or its equivalent in place. So I think that's where we see major developments on the wholesale side. I'll be remiss maybe just not to mention just the point about stablecoins and tokenized bank liability. I think we may speak about that subsequently, but I just want to bring out the point to say that a lot of the efforts so far from the central bank and policymakers so far, especially regards to operations and a real-world use case, has been centered around more wholesale settlement infrastructure. And I think a lot of focus has been around wholesale CBDC and commercial bank tokens. On the stablecoin side, I think there are some experiments and use cases at the retail side, which I think there are different efforts by different central banks kind of looking at that. We ourselves have an initiative and program which looks at the use cases of stablecoins. But at least for now, there hasn't been a cross-border, let's say, stablecoin projects that's directly been sponsored or looked at by policymakers as of now. So with that, I'll end my.
So thank you very much for extensive coverage of the issues. Among the issues you raised, I think first of all that among your initiatives that you are taking account of the relative importance of corridors of payments, which might be relevant for Japan, because the Japanese firms are looking at the opportunities of the China plus one strategies, that resulting in the increasing demand for emerging currency transactions in the future. And secondly, I think that both of you has mentioned the significance as well as the prospective roles of the wholesale CBDC. I totally agree with you, but still, that I think that there is an ongoing discussion. What is the concrete role of it? I think that depending on the choice of the technologies, for example, that the unified ledger is one of the options. But Rim-san mentioned, I think that synchronization of ledger is another option, I think. So that some kind of the options are there. So thank you very much for your comments. And let me turn to the second set of discussions. And this will be covered by Japanese participants. And let me discuss in Japanese. And
And again, thank you for waiting. We're going to go to discussion point number 2. If we could go to the second slide, next slide, issues for discussion number 2. Likewise, in Japan, in many forms, private sector entities are engaged in several initiatives. So, as you and your companies engage in those projects, what are in your mind? What kind of requirements are there? And what other projects you're involved in? I'm sure that the audience would be interested in hearing from you. Digitalization, not necessarily digital currency, but using digital technology. How can cross-border payment be facilitated? There are several stages or processes, but which phase would be the biggest beneficiary in terms of efficiency improvement? Ueno-san. Thank you very much. I am Ueno of Mitsubishi UFG. I am the Deputy Chief Strategy Officer of MUFG Bank. On the other hand, our bank is currently the chair of the Japan Bankers Association. So we serve as the board member of FinCity.Tokyo as well. So let me talk about the question you asked. First of all, demand in Japan for cross-border payment. On the global basis, cross-border payment is increasing, as explained by 2 colleagues from the central banks, and expansion is predicted. With international trade, service expansion, the transborder EC, platform economy, and digital payment technology becoming more sophisticated, we are expecting increase. And in Japan as well, cross-border payment market is slated to expand. But what's the uniqueness of Japan? Many of the transactions are between large corporates. In addition to international trade, there is the transfer of funds in the form of interest and dividend from their subsidiaries. And in individual remittance, the size in the Japanese market is smaller than European or Asian countries, but the number of foreign residents in Japan last year or 2 years ago was 3.77 million, which was a record high in 2024. So we think that the volume of remittance to their home countries will increase. But as I said at the outset, cross-border payment in Japan is mainly being done by large companies and large financial institutes. In other words, they are wholesale payments. So one characteristic is the amount per transaction being quite big tickets. So I think this is the same as other major countries, but so far, SWIFT-based methodology, which is the traditional payment system, had been chosen. And we don't think that this will change immediately in the short term. So SWIFT will continue to be chosen. On the other hand, FSB has come up with the G20 roadmap for cross-border payments, and they identify the objectives to be achieved by 2027. So, and as was already mentioned, stable coins, tokenized deposit, and other blockchain-based payments have emerged. And on the asset side as well, financial transactions that were conducted off-chain traditionally are now being done on-chain, although the pace of change has been gradual. So we have begun to see many examples of Japanese financial institutions participating in cross-border payment-related initiatives using blockchain. But there aren't so many use cases yet, so we're currently studying what use cases there could be. But immediateness of payments and programmability In other words, digital information can be overlaid on top of the payment. So I think that those are many of the use cases, and we think that those are the conveniences offered by these systems, and we're engaged in several initiatives, but we're trying to verify the effectiveness of such traits. On the other hand, what are the projects our bank is engaged in? Please take a look at this slide. There are a few projects we're engaged in. There are more than 4, but due to time constraints, I will introduce 4. On the left top, we announced the stablecoin issuance by a few banks, which was announced last November, and cross-border remittance. As trust beneficiary rights stablecoins are issued, and Mitsubishi Corporation's Japan head office and foreign subs do cross-border payment, and this is being used to do a demonstration of such cross-border payment, and this has been granted the support from the Financial Services Agency of Japan as a fintech demonstration hub. We are planning to build up experience and findings through these projects, and eventually we will begin to see more use cases of multiple supply chain users. So we're trying to get outcome from this demonstration in order to feed in the findings into such projects. Secondly, bottom left, this was launched in October last year. European bank groups are, and we are joining a joint digital currency issuance initiative. It's still in innate stage, so there's not much that I can report to you regarding this project, but as you can see, our bank is the only Japanese bank participating in this project, and we will be seeking a common platform under this project. The third project, now Emmanuel introduced this already, Project Agora. I will skip the details, but as indicated, 7 central banks and 43 private sector banks are participating. Our bank included, the 3 mega banks and SBI Shinsei are the 4 Japanese participants. And it is the sophistication of cross-border payment based upon unified ledger. And the fourth one is on the bottom right, which is a SWIFT-driven project. It uses existing infrastructure in order to create and build a new blockchain infrastructure. SWIFT blockchain development companies and more than 30 financial institution groups, including Japanese banks, are cooperating to enable 24/7 cross-border payment and build a ledger that will enable such services. We are promoting the build-up of prototype. And further, this fiscal year, our bank is serving as the chair of the Japan Bankers Association, and the association runs the Zengin Net. And under the Zengin Net, we've established a study group to study the improvement of cross-border payment in other countries, stablecoin, tokenized deposits, digital currencies, and we're studying new trend in order to think about how we should try to upgrade the payment system in Japan. So this is more a mid to long-term project. So a variety of demonstration projects are being participated by our bank. So our bank will continue to make efforts to respond to the requirements of our customers in cross-border payment. So with agility, we will continue to participate in such demonstration projects. Thank you. Thank you very much. Next, thank you for waiting, Mr. Karamura. You are Executive Director of Trade Waltz. At FCT, I was doing research on supply chains, and you were a major contributor. So you're a user of cross-border payment, and you also run the infrastructure for cross-border payment. So thank you for being part of the panel.
Thank you very much. My name is Kawamura from Trade Waltz. I I'd like to thank you very much for inviting me to participate in this session. Trade Waltz, as has been introduced, is working on a trade digital platform for the exporters and the importers and bank, insurance, and logistic companies. For those of you handling the practical aspects, we provide the platform for digitalization. And before I go into answering the discussion points, I'd like to talk about why I was invited. Trade and settlement and currency, the historical context is what I'd like to explain to share the backdrop. Going back 800 years in the 13th century in the Middle Ages in Italy, a very important revolution occurred in terms of trade. In the 13th century in the Middle Ages in Italy, a Mediterranean trade was very well developed, but the trade was very dangerous at the time. Gold coins were carried with the goods. There were pirates and bandits, and the ships may sink. And so the Italian people in commerce had a problem that they had to deal with. And a innovative investment was made. That was the bill of exchange. And where is the intrinsic value? Instead of carrying heavy gold coins, paper. Information was carried, the paper which indicated commitments for payment. And so it was an abstraction from gold coins to paper. And so after that, in the age of exploration, globalization was supported by the invention of bill of exchange. The Middle Ages, the bill of exchange was such that enabled endorsement and transfer of bills, and money became liquid. And the historian Neil Ferguson talks about the bill of exchange being the cryptocurrency of the Renaissance ages. And so this is the historic backdrop. If you could project slide number 5 among my slides, please. This, if you could proceed to the very last slide. Finally, I'm talking about trade and settlement. Until 800 years ago, there was the commerce flow, that's contract and the bills, and then there's the money flow, and then logistics. 800 years ago, a bill of exchange was invited, and so the commerce flow and the money flow and logistics were separated. And it hasn't changed for 800 years. With SWIFT, invention of SWIFT, settlement was digitalized, and it became very fast. But in the world of trade, we still work with paper. And the bill of lading is issued by shipping companies, and it is mailed to the destination. And unless you have the paper, you can't receive the goods. And that still continues to this day. Going forward, stable coins with tokenization, the settlement platform will be digitalized, and what we're doing, commercial flow, trade business platform will be digitalized. And when that happens, programmable settlement occurs. When the rights are transferred, settlement occurs. And we assume that that will be what will happen. That's the great vision. And commercial flow and logistics will fuse. And in this context, where are we here in Japan? In the world of commercial flow, there's a major development. Web 2.0. In that world, a lot of digital data can be copied easily. But in the world of digital, for the rights to be transferred, how do we ensure that with a legal framework? How do we guarantee that? In 2017, UN's UNCITRAL came up with model law on electronic transferable records of MLETR. The right is transferred on the electronic field, and among the European countries, there's an aim to try to translate it into domestic laws. And here in Japan, finally, MLETR, transferring rights electronically, referencing this bill, one of the documents, Bill of Lading, and the laws related to Bill of Lading is coming close to materialization. We finally come to that stage. UK, France, Singapore, and Singapore has already moved ahead with legislation. The transfer of rights and electronic and digitalization for these to be legally stable. This would realize the settlement. And in Japan, we are ahead of the pack. And toward legislation. In my capacity in the private sector, I have been instrumental in pushing this forward, and it's looking like it's going to materialize finally. And what UENO-san is doing, the 3 mega banks are working on common stablecoin and issuance of common stablecoins. So that is another major flow. With FSA, I have many opportunities to talk to them, and cross-border settlement and trade transaction and stablecoin using worldview, I think, is something that the government and the nation should undertake. And from regulatory authorities, I receive questions. So we hope that we think that in that direction, specific projects will begin to materialize. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We will go to the last point of discussion. You have spoken so enthusiastically, so we don't have much time left. But we had the late start, so we can have additional time, I suppose. And we go to the third point of discussion. Once again, the last point of slide. So challenges and measures. Upside is opportunity. So there could be benefits, so including benefits and opportunities. So what is this proper balance between challenges and benefits and opportunities? In order to overcome this question, what is the thinking? What are the measures that we can employ? Of course, still, for overseas speakers have spoken, and as domestic speakers have spoken, we are in a nascent period, and everybody is groping for a lot of opportunities and possibilities. So concretely, not talking about overcoming specific challenges, what are the challenges which are important? Or you can talk about it, or anything that is on your mind. We will start from the Japanese side. So Ueno-san, can you start? Yes, thank you. Challenges. Cross-border payment. Before digitalization of a cross-border, what is the current challenges? In plural number of jurisdictions, plural number of entities are engaged, and cost is very high, and speed is slow. It takes time, and also access is limited. And transparency is a challenge. Or regarding details, visualization is lacking. I think these are the challenges. In order to cope with those challenges, one use case would be this, blockchain technology utilization. I think that is promising. And in that case, tokenization and stable coin have come up on the stage. That is my understanding. In this context, as I spoke on our side, we are working on various projects, and we are proceeding with our studies. So having said that, the cross-border payment digitalization, we are discussing challenges. Against those challenges, stable coins and tokenized deposit could be the points that I would like to talk about. Stable coin or tokenized deposits. Recently, various projects are ongoing, but like SWIFT, single global network-based framework is not which comes from the stablecoin and so forth. Blockchain, what is the issuing entity and what is the asset to be covered by the stable coins and so forth. So the objects could be diversified. So diversification would be always around us. So when we have diversification, then interconnectivity of various infrastructures and another networks that could be diversified. So operational challenges, system security could become very sophisticated and complex. So these are the possible concerns. So continuing that, the tokenized deposits and stablecoins, legal status thereof. Various countries have a different legal structure about that. So globally, if there is no standardization in the cross-border payment, technologically transfer is possible, but the legal certainty is not there, then there is a de facto transactional cost which will be introduced because of that situation. So for bankers, it is an urgent task. System-related cost. In the case of tokenized deposits, bank deposit will have to be expressed in tokens. And because of that character, the outstanding amount and the ledger-based balance of the bank have to be agreed instantaneously in a one-time event. So you have to connect it to blockchain. How about the cost of this connection? So this cost aspect is something that we have to study very solidly, and ROI is going to be another challenge. In addition, stablecoin, it is usually said when it goes ML KYC protection, and consumers must be protected, and it has to be payment available 24/7. So we have to have a sturdy system to support that, especially in Japan. Blockchain engineers have to be nurtured and trained. That's a challenge. So we have multifarious challenges. But nevertheless, cross-border payment provides various opportunities and benefits. So pros and cons will have to be analyzed, and with agility we have to verify it, and we have to work on the investment scale so that we can have the solid verification and study. So in a straightforward way, in order to overcome challenges, we don't have a straightforward answer, but while we work on it, agility is something that we have to have in order to confirm what we study.
Thank you very much. In practice, I'm a CFO, so let me deliver my opinion from the user perspective.
For the CFO, whether it's tax purposes or for accounting purposes, you need legal stability, and this discussion is related to that. To put on the balance sheet what you don't understand is difficult. However, on our part, if it's a stable coin, that's cash. It can be treated as cash or cash equivalents. But that has been established. So the first entry point has been passed through. In practical terms, managing many accounts or owning many currencies in terms of corporate management, that's very cumbersome. So credible digital currency and the emergence of credible digital currency is important. In the field of crypto assets, there are different coins emerging, but there has to be convergence. So focusing on Bitcoin, or in the world of stablecoin, the 3 megabank stablecoins, or what can be securely used by companies. If that emerges, I think it will come to be used. And thirdly, whether we can go beyond just acceleration. When it's slow, it's cumbersome, but if you wait 2 or 3 days, it's delivered. Programmability, or a business transaction, when that occurs, the automatic settlement, the middle operation to be cut out. if there's a major change of this sort, I think it will begin to penetrate.
ありがとうございました。
Thank you.
Of the duration of the discussion that I would like to hear a very brief comment from overseas panelists as well. Aswan-san, please.
Thank you very much. For us, the way forward, in addition to what we are doing in terms of fast payment system interlinking, is about, of course, tokenization. It has been said extensively. We have additional opportunities that we didn't mention, but about compliance and the way the smart contracts can embed all the compliance features in terms of anti-money laundering and CFT. For instance, we have done a project with Mandala, which proves that it is very effective and very efficient, and that it could help further cross-border payments. The main challenges that we have to overcome are the key nodes or the key features that we have to ensure in terms of playing on tokenization, which is a strong factor of success for sure, certainly, is to ensure that we maintain the two-tier monetary system. So having wholesale CBDC on one side, what we are going to deliver in Europe, but also maintaining commercial bank money in a tokenized form. We are not, the jury is still out whether it will be stable coins or tokenized deposits. We are quite neutral. I think that we can handle both. They will have use cases maybe different, whether it's stable coins or tokenized deposits, but we have a strong conviction, which is that it has to be provided by commercial banks because they are the ones which finance the real economy, and we have to maintain a liaison between money, either tokenized or not, and the funding of the real economy. So that's core to a project. What we have to overcome or to ensure or make as a prerequisite as well from a cross-border perspective is, of course, the infrastructure. And when it comes to international infrastructures, governance is key. So we have built very good things with SWIFT. We have built also very good things with CLS on the FX risk change. We have to ensure that governance in terms of infrastructures, whether they can be integrated like a unified ledger or interoperable, which might be a little bit less efficient, but we have to see and continue testing and experimenting. They have to get the right governance. Maybe one last point on my side is that we have to ensure that regulatory framework is adequate in order to be fairly adapted to the tokenized ecosystem. We are neutral from a technological perspective. So if we have the same activity, we should have the same risks and the same rules. This speak about interoperability and equivalent treatment, which are core. Whether it's the legacy system or the new tokenized system, we have to be very consistent across the board. Last point is about liquidity. If we get into tokenization, CBDC, stable coins, tokenized deposits, it is instant payment. We have to see and at the global level or for regional aspects, how liquidity flows and how we manage things rightly in terms of netting, which has not been proven so far. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I would like to hear the same set of a very brief comment from Lim-san, please.
Thank you very much. I have similar comments as well around standards and compliance and on infrastructure. I think the observation is that with different efforts that are underway, there's probably going to be many different ledgers. There's probably not only going to be one blockchain. There will be many blockchains, some by the private sector and some could be by the public sector. So what we have undertaken together with colleagues from the central banks, Banque de France being one of them, as well as from the private sector, including MUFG, for example, HSBC, JP Morgan, Standard Chartered, and others, was really to come together with an initiative called Global Layer 1. The idea here with the Global Layer 1 or GL1, the idea was to develop a set of common standards and approaches for looking at how infrastructures that meets the regulatory expectation and in fact market practices should look like. So we have developed jointly a market infrastructure toolkit, GL1 market infrastructure toolkit. It's available online. You can take a look at that. But that hopefully provides a way for providers or operators to assess the readiness of infrastructure against existing risk management frameworks that are out there and the controls that are put in place. And maybe just to end off, Emmanuel talked about the idea of cross-border compliance. So that's another piece that we've looked into. How do we operationalize this in practice? How do we standardize, for example, how AML, CFT controls are actually programmed alongside the transfer of tokens? So that's something that we've looked at operationalizing it under GL1. Again, there's a toolkit available under the GL1 Programmable Compliance Toolkit as well that looks at addressing some of those issues. Thank you very much.
ありがとうございました。ちょっと時間超過してしまいまして申し訳ありませんでしたけど、パネリ
Thank you very much. We've overrun the time. I'm sorry. We'd like to thank the panelists for covering the issue extensively. On our part, when we think about this, I think we've been given a lot of homework to do. So could we have a big round of applause for the panelists, please?
参加者の皆様ありがとうございました。今一度
Thank you very much to the moderator and to the panelists. Could we have another round of applause, please?